Here are the top stories for today, January 18, 2022. President Rodrigo Duterte tells the unvaccinated their individual rights cannot prevail over the country's welfare and interest as movement curbs for those refusing to get jabs are now in place. Vaccination in full swing, some drugstores and pharmacies will now serve as hubs for booster shots as the number of fully vaccinated Filipinos tops 55 million. The start of the implementation of the no vaccine, no ride policy in Metro Manila has been smooth, but the DOTR warns a hefty fine for PUV operators who will not comply. And the Labor Department calls on employers to grant a paid isolation or quarantine leave for COVID-hit workers as infections among employees in many sectors show no sign of abating. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. President Rodrigo Roa Duterte says the individual rights of the people cannot go above the interest of the community. This as the president acknowledged criticism over his directive to village officials to restrict movements of unvaccinated persons. In his pre-recorded Talk to the People address, President Duterte justified his directive, noting that it is after the greatest good for the greatest number.
Yan talaga ang that's a dictum that must be remembered when constitutional provisions are being put into issue. Kagaya ng alamin ng barangay captain kung sino yung may walang bakuna. It does not, even if it is really a violation, at this time when there is a public protection of the public, of the many, masasakripisyo talaga yung the right to, will be not really sacrificed, but must be below always. It cannot go higher than the public good. The greatest number would always prevail. The greatest good for the greatest majority.
Aside from terrorists and New People's Army, President Rodrigo Duterte says the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic is the top threat to Filipinos. The president made the remark as the country recorded over 37,000 new COVID-19 infections anew. He described COVID-19 as a debilitating sickness.
The number one threat to the Filipino today, aside from itong NPA and the terrorists, is really the COVID-19 fight. It is really a debilitating sickness, and a lot of Filipinos are, there's a contagion yan. Ito parang hawa-kihawa, mabilis. Kung vaccinated, medyo may laban ka. Kung wala, maglibing tayo ng, palagay ko kung nabakunado ito, buhay pa hanggang ngayon. Wala namang sanang masama kung magpabakuna ka, except na yung tinatamaan ng medyo kunting lagnat. But hindi ka mamamatay niyan. Halos buhay. Yung hindi talaga bakunado, patay. Baski Omicron, patay yan.
To further ramp up the vaccination of booster shots in the country, Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. says the government will tap big pharmacies and private sector clinics as inoculation sites. Based on Galvez's presentation to President Rodrigo Duterte, the COVID-19 vaccination rollout in pharmacies shall be conducted in a phased approach. Phase 1 is the rollout in identified pilot areas in the National Capital Region on January 20. Phase 2 is the expansion to additional sites in NCR depending on site readiness. And Phase 3 is the expansion to additional sites in other regions depending on site readiness.
Ipaprioritize lang po natin dito ang boosters to ensure safety sa lahat po ng priority groups from A1 to A5 and the rest of the population. But majority po will be coming from the private sector A4. Mr. President, this is our way forward to hand over the responsibility of the vaccination from the national government center to its complete devolution to the LGUs and the private sector in the preparation for the future commercialization of the vaccine. So mangyayari po si Secretary Anyo at saka po ang private sector na po ang mamumuno po ng mga vaccination program po natin through the LGU.
Education Secretary Leonor Briones recommends a progressive expansion of limited face-to-face classes next month following a highly successful implementation in November and December. Briones noted a high level of feeling of safety among students, teachers, and parents. She also said students and parents had a high satisfaction levels in terms of health and safety protocols.
Aming rekomendasyon, Mr. President, progressive expansion, hindi yung lahat-lahat sabay-sabay. Kung ang isang lugar ay alert level 1 and 2, selective, pwedeng mag-expand ng face-to-face. Ngayon, yung framework ng shared responsibility, patuloy. Hindi kami mag-expand ng basta-basta na hindi kami mangangatok sa local governments at saka hindi namin makuha yung written consent ng mga parents. Pangatlo, alam ko na mayroong ibang mga staff namin na siguro hindi nila magustuhan. Ang sabi namin, only vaccinated teachers and non-teaching personnel na vaccinated will participate kung tayo ay mag-implement ng face-to-face. At saka yung participation ng vaccinated students, kasi in-announce na ni Secretary Galvez na by March, by April, mag-umpisa na tayo sa mga bata, yun preferred natin yun.
Fines and penalties are now being imposed for violators of the no vaccination, no ride policy of the Department of Transportation. After the generally peaceful implementation yesterday, the DOTR says traffic enforcers from IACT, LTO, LTFRB, and PNP Highway Patrol Group are presently issuing warnings against violators of the no vax, no ride rule. Under the said policy, PUV drivers and operators that violate the mandatory vaccination policy will be fined 5,000 for a first offense and 10,000 for a second offense, as well as impounding of their PUV for 30 days. For the third offense, drivers and operators will be fined 15,000 pesos and will have their franchise suspended or canceled. Meanwhile, passengers who failed to present a vaccination card or relevant documents providing their exemption are being prevented from boarding the PUVs. The Department of Labor and Employment urges private sector employers to come up with an appropriate paid isolation and quarantine leave program for workers affected by COVID-19. Under the paid isolation and quarantine leave benefit, all exposed employees who have to undergo isolation and quarantine for several days and not yet confined to a hospital but have exhausted all of his or her company-offered leave benefits will continue to receive their wages from the employer throughout isolation. On the other hand, employees who contracted COVID-19 can receive compensation but not those who need to be placed in isolation and quarantine for observation following preliminary positive test results. Under the Employees Compensation Benefits Program, employees who are paying members of the Social Security system who are hospitalized and confined for COVID-19 will be compensated throughout the duration of their hospital confinement, including the cost of medicine, doctor's fee, and cost rehabilitation. In Caloocan City, about 55% of the COVID-19 patients admitted at the Dr. Jose Rodriguez Memorial Hospital, known as Tala Hospital, are unvaccinated. Of the 274 patients, only 43% are fully vaccinated, 2% are partially vaccinated, and the rest are unvaccinated. Medical Director Dr. Alfonso Victorino Famaran Jr. says 53% of the hospital's 520 beds dedicated to COVID-19 patients are occupied. Famaran also says 510 of the hospital's 1,300 healthcare workers are in isolation due to infection or exposure to coronavirus patients. Despite the lack of personnel, hospital operations continue with the 229 additional personnel dispatched by the Department of Health. In Quezon City, unvaccinated individuals are allowed to go to work, but most undergo COVID-19 swab tests every 2 weeks at their own expense. The city government passed an ordinance regulating the mobility of persons unvaccinated for COVID-19 in accordance with the MMDA resolution. As such, all establishments that will allow entry of unvaccinated individuals for non-essential activities will also be fined 3,000 pesos for the first offense, 5,000 pesos with the suspension of business permit and temporary closure order for the second offense, and 5,000 and cancellation of business permit and closure order for the third offense. The acquisition of the Indian-made BrahMos medium-range ramjet supersonic cruise missiles is said to enhance the Philippine Navy's capabilities to defend the country's maritime borders. Philippine Navy spokesperson Commander Benjo Negranza says the BrahMos will complement their surface ships in patrolling Philippine waters aside from beefing up the Philippine Marine Corps firepower. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana earlier said the deliveries of the BrahMos is expected to start within a year. The BrahMos project is worth around 19 billion pesos. Meanwhile, the Philippine Army opens its first ever aeromedical evacuation training program. A total of 17 students will undergo the blended training program that is divided into the Army Flight Medic course and the Army Critical Care Flight Medic course. The training also seeks to upgrade the Army Aviation Regiment's aeromedical capability in anticipation of the acquisition of air assets that will be used in the transport of battle casualties. Still ahead, keeping public transport safe, Manila opens an exclusive booster shot lane for PUV drivers. Details ahead, keep it here on the PNA Newsroom.
Paolo Jones po para sa kampanyang Disiplina Muna na pinangungunahan ng DILG. Bakit ba kailangan magparehistro sa pagpapabakuna laban sa COVID-19? Mahalagang magparehistro dahil ito ang unang step sa pagpapabakuna laban sa COVID-19. May 3 pamamaraan upang makapagrehistro ang isang Pilipino na nais mabakunahan. Una, ang online registration sa inyong local government unit o LGU. Pangalawa, ang pagpunta sa mga vaccination centers at pagkuha ng registration form. At pakikipag-ugnayan sa mga pinuno ng barangay o sa mga barangay health center. Tandaan, online, sa mga vaccination site o sa mga barangay health centers ang pagpaparehistro sa pagpapabakuna kontra COVID-19. Muli ako po si Paolo Medjones, Disiplina Muna Ambassador na nagpapaalala, huwag matakot magpabakuna. Bida ang may disiplina. Magparehistro at magpabakuna para ligtas ang pamilya, ligtas ang bayan. Disiplinadong Pilipino ay rehistrado para maging bakunado.
To entice more Manileños to get vaccinated, a drive-through vaccination spot was opened to cater to public utility drivers who need booster shots. More on this and other news around the metro from Marita Moahe.
Public utility vehicle drivers now have easier access to booster shots as the city government of Manila opened an exclusive drive-through vaccination site at the Bagong Ospital ng Maynila. PUV drivers can also bring along their family members eligible for booster shots from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day with 1,000 to be accommodated daily. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno and Vice Mayor Hani Lacuna Pangan launched the new job site along Mabini Street just beside the Manila Zoo. The mayor said this is a space for PUV drivers so as not to disrupt their livelihood. Meanwhile, the Makati City government will provide free COVID-19 tests to qualified residents. In a social media advisory on Monday, the city government said it will allow symptomatic residents to avail themselves of the RT-PCR and antigen tests for COVID-19 free of charge. Senior citizens, persons with comorbidities, indigent population, and even unvaccinated individuals who are close contacts of a COVID-19 patient are qualified for the free tests. Symptomatic residents may contact the City Epidemiology and Surveillance Unit to avail of the tests. Back in Manila, to further prepare for a possible surge in COVID-19 infections, the city government is planning to convert a part of the Bagong Ospital ng Maynila into a quarantine facility. Mayor Isko Moreno said that the 50-bed capacity emergency room of the 10-story hospital that is still under construction may be utilized for COVID-19 patients. As of Monday, only 105 COVID-19 beds or 30% of the 344-bed capacity of Manila COVID-19 Field Hospital are occupied. Last week, the occupancy rate reached as high as 95%. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Marita Muaje.
The Commission on Elections has declared presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos to be part of the final list of candidates for the May 9, 2022 polls. COMELEC Education and Information Department Director Eliza David said the name of the former senator will be on the official ballot since other cases against him have yet to be resolved. The COMELEC has yet to resolve 5 petitions to cancel Marcos' certificate of candidacy and disqualify him from the elections. On the other hand, 2 petitions have already been dismissed. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez said in case a candidate is disqualified before the elections but after the ballots have been printed, the name will remain on the ballot. If Marcos' party, Partido Federal ng Pilipinas, will not be able to substitute him in a case of a disqualification, all votes for Marcos will be invalid. 2 of the 3 prisoners who escaped from the new Bilibid prison and maximum security compound in Muntinlupa on Monday were killed during the manhunt operations by the authorities. The Muntinlupa police identified the fatalities as Pacifico Adlawan, a native of Surigao del Sur who was serving his sentence for frustrated homicide and drug use, and Arwin Bio, a native of Leyte who was convicted of attempted murder and murder. Police are still conducting operations to arrest Dracilu Falcon, who is serving sentence for robbery with homicide. Adlawan, Bio, and Falcon escaped from the NBP maximum security camp Monday past midnight and fled towards Sitio Magtaong inside the NBP reservation. The 3 NBP corrections officers and 1 prisoner were wounded as they attempted to escape. Moving on to business, Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez assures that reforms pushing for economic liberalization will help the country to get back to pre-pandemic level. Lopez highlighted the importance of the ratification of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Law, enactment of the Retail Trade Liberalization Law, and supporting reforms such as the amendments to the Foreign Investments Act and the Public Service Act. Lopez cited how foreign investors have put their trust and confidence in the country as foreign direct investments hit $8.1 billion in October 2021, which is 48% higher than in 2020. He said the country only needs to grow by 4.8% full-year growth for 2022 to hit the economic level pre-COVID-19. He said these and opening businesses despite the spike in COVID-19 cases will help the country to grow at 6 to 7% this year, which was the country's economic growth before COVID-19 struck. More than 90% of monitored establishments in Metro Manila have been shown to follow the minimum public health protocols in 2021. The Department of Trade and Industry's Fair Trade Enforcement Bureau said 4,925 out of over 5,200 inspected business establishments have observed and followed minimum health standards to curb the spread of COVID-19. The agency already issued requests for corrective action to non-compliant enterprises. Among the common violations of establishments were the lack of mandatory contact tracing, thermal scanners, floor markings, and regular maintenance schedules for air-conditioned units. DTI Consumer Protection Group Undersecretary Ruth Castello has reminded establishments to strictly follow the health standards prescribed by the Interagency Task Force. She said the department will continue to monitor the compliance of business establishments by conducting on-the-spot checking regularly. Up next, some provinces follow suit in restricting travel for the unvaccinated. More stories when the PNA Newsroom returns.
Mga kabida, COVID-19 may be here for a while as we continue to aim for population protection through vaccination. So to keep you and your family safe, look for the safety seal sticker whenever you go to malls, eat out in restaurants, or visit any private or public establishments. This safety seal certification signifies that an establishment is compliant with health and safety protocols set by the government to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Kaya you're guaranteed of health and safety consciousness of the places you go to. Remember, bida ang may tatak. Check if there is a safety seal along the entrance area of the place you're visiting para ligtas ang pamilya, ligtas ang bayan.
President Rodrigo Duterte has signed into law two measures declaring heritage zones in the provinces of Cebu and Ilocos Sur. Duterte signed both Republic Act 11644 or the Carcar City Heritage Zone Act and RA 11645 establishing a heritage zone within the municipality of San Vicente, Ilocos Sur. Under RA 11644, Carcar City will be accorded priority development by the Department of Tourism, which will coordinate with various agencies for the development, conservation, and preservation of heritage zones. Meanwhile, under RA 11645, the DOT will also immediately prepare the development plan involving the preservation, conservation, restoration, and maintenance of cultural and historical sites and structures for the enhancement and sustainability of tourism in San Vicente. The preservation, protection, study, and promotion of the cultural and historical integrity of the heritage zone will receive priority development attention, assistance, and funding. With a focus on controlling the movement of people in and out of the Bicol region, the Civil Aviation Authority has implemented a no vaccination, no entry policy in Bicol's airports. Chris Mundo has the story.
The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, on Monday started the implementation of the no vaccination, no entry policy at the Bicol International Airport and other satellite airports in the region. In an advisory, CAAP said only fully vaccinated individuals shall be allowed entry unless he or she is qualified to exemptions. CAAP Bicol said all airport users, either passengers or non-passengers, are reminded to bring their vaccination cards and identification cards for verification at the entrance gate. Authorities in Cotabato City have also started implementing a no vaccination card, no entry policy for all persons entering from adjoining Maguindanao province. City Public Safety Officer Rolin Balkin said that since Sunday, people passing entry points in the city's north and south borders would be asked to present proof of vaccination. IATF personnel demand quick response passcode and vaccination certificate or vaccination cards from all those coming to the city. Today, the city has over 115,000 fully vaccinated individuals, or about 52.9% of the total eligible population. Meanwhile, the provincial government of South Cotabato is now requiring inbound travelers to present negative RT-PCR test results at its border checkpoints. South Cotabato Governor Reynaldo Tamayo Jr. on Monday instructed government units to require RT-PCR results taken within 3 days for the travelers from high-risk countries and areas in the Philippines within Alert Level 3 or higher categories. Residents of South Cotabato arriving General Santos City Airport are also advised to register with SPass or Safe, Swift, and Smart Passage before entering the province. South Cotabato, together with 50 other areas in the country, will remain under Alert Level 3 until January 31. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
The Calinaw village in Davao City welcomes former New People's Army rebels who wish to undergo reformation and return to the fold of the law. Minda Silvano, center head for Calinaw village, said the village accepts and provides necessary interventions for the rebel returnees. Residents are provided with professional services such as medical treatment, seminars such as mental wellness and community relations, financial assistance, livelihood training, and entrepreneurship, among others. The village also holds partnerships with the residents' families, barangays, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the Philippine National Police in preparation for their reintegration into society. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, on the other hand, gives financial assistance to support their needs after their residency in the village. Silvano shared that the residents have shown appreciation for the Calinaw village as they experience the government services and programs. The Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao is celebrating this week its third foundation anniversary at the Bangsamoro Government Center in Cotabato City. This year, the regional government highlights its breakthroughs in achieving peace and development and reforming the Bangsamoro. Chief Minister Ahud Ibrahim, Senior Minister Abdul Rauf Makakua, and Bangsamoro Parliament Speaker Pagalian Balindong led a short program outside the BARMM main building. Sheikh Khalifa Nando, the Wali or Muslim religious leader of the Bangsamoro, also sounded the gong to officially commence the celebration. Each ministry will hold activities throughout the week, such as the opening of the Marfalenque, where farmers can sell directly to consumers, as well as distribution of land titles, cleanup drives, and even trainings. January 21 is proclaimed as the Bangsamoro Foundation Day and declared a non-working holiday in the region. It is in celebration of the establishment of the BARMM in recognition of the exercise of their right to self-determination. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. President Rodrigo Duterte tells the unvaccinated their individual rights cannot prevail over the country's welfare and interest as movement curbs for those refusing to get jabs are now in place. Vaccination in full swing, some drugstores and pharmacies will now serve as hubs for booster shots as the number of fully vaccinated Filipinos tops 55 million. The start of the implementation of the no vaccine, no ride policy in Metro Manila has been smooth, but the DOTR warns a hefty fine for PUV operators who will not comply. And the Labor Department calls on employers to grant paid isolation or quarantine leave for COVID-hit workers as infections among employees in many sectors show no sign of abating. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.